Today we're going to be talking about a change in demand versus the price effect. So the difference between the price effect and change in demand is a price effect will only cause movement up and down a demand curve. So stay on that demand curve we talked about in the last video. A change in demand will actually cause a shift in the demand curve to either increase or decrease. So as you see in this graph here, our demand curve is here in the middle. That's our normal demand curve, okay? And an increase in demand would shift it to the right, would be this one. A decrease in demand wanted would be a shift to the left, or this one here. Okay, so again, here's your normal demand curve. It would only cause it to shift right or left if it's a change in demand. If it's just a price effect, so the price of a pop goes down from $1.89 to 99 cents, it would just be along the original demand curve. And we're going to talk now about some factors that would cause your ability to change in demand. So again, factors that cause a change in demand. First one's a change in income. Pretty self-explanatory here. If your income rises, people have more money to spend, they're willing to pay higher prices for the same quantities. And vice versa, if your income decreases, you have less money to spend, then you're not going to be willing to pay high prices for the same quantities. Okay, so that change in income is going to be a big factor. You get a raise, you might have the ability to, or the want and ability to spend more on something else. Whereas you lose your job, you need to cut some things out. The second one is the price or availability of substitutes. A change in the price of one item will result in a change or shift in the demand for a substitute. So for example, if the price of your favorite steak or ribeye increases from $2.50 for a ribeye to $10 for ribeye, and you may then go to the substitute, which would be a hamburger. Okay, and that availability and price of a hamburger would determine whether or not you eat that or stay with the $10 steak. Okay. So again, a change in the price of one item will result in a change or shift in the demand for a substitute. So again, if we're talking about the steak, increases in the price to $10, the demand would change for your hamburger. It would shift it to go to the right. It would increase that because the hamburger would be a substitute for a steak. Number three, the price or availability of complementary goods. So the definition of a complementary good first is they're goods often used together. Hot dogs, hot dog buns are a great example of this. If demand for one product goes up, the demand for its complementary good will as well. Again, let's say that the price of hot dogs decreases dramatically. What is the demand for hot dog buns? That demand would increase. It would shift it to the right for the hot dog buns because that's a complementary good. A change in the weather or season. Again, the demand for swimsuits right now might be very low because we're in the middle of winter versus the time in June and July. Same thing's going to happen in June or July. The demand for winter coats might be very low because you don't need them. You're not thinking about it. So a change in weather or season is going to affect that as well. A change in population. If population of a community grows, more demand is created for products. For example, if our population continues to increase, we might need more pizza restaurants. Where if our population decreases, we might lose a demand for pizza. The sixth one is a change in tastes and preferences. This might be due to a diet. This might be due to a fad. A fad is basically a popularity thing. For example, when I was in high school back in the 90s, the big fad was the kind of the flannel shirts. Okay, that's not a big fad right now. It might be coming back, but it is something that would be a popularity thing. And so, for example, in the 90s, the demand for flannel shirts was way up, and so we'd buy those, and the price might be a little bit higher. Now the demand for flannel shirts is pretty low. Okay, so that'd be a change in taste or preferences. Change in expectations. If people expect prices to change in the future, it will affect their demand today. So for example, if we saw that a huge snowstorm killed 10,000 cattle in South Dakota last week, we could anticipate or expect that the price of meat, hamburger, steak, is going to increase in the next couple of weeks because there's going to be a lower supply of cows going to market. Okay, it would affect our demand today. We would go buy that meat now because the price is going to be lower versus wait till in a couple of weeks when we expect that price to be higher. So that's a change in expectations. So that was basically your change in demand. Now what I want to talk about today is called price elasticity of demand. Definition here is how much demand varies according to change in price. So basically, is your demand changing due to the price? That's how elastic the demand is of this product. Okay. So first of all, elastic demand, think about elasticity. You can stretch it, it'll expand quite a bit. Think about an elastic band, you can stretch it really out. Okay. So this is where a change in price has a large effect on the number sold. So for example, if you're going to have this where a big drastic price change is going to affect a large amount of your product being sold, it would consider to be elastic. Okay. Versus inelastic, which it doesn't change, you have a change in price has a small effect on the number sold. And a great example of inelastic demand would be that of maybe a very needed medicine, maybe penicillin for a diabetic. Okay, no matter what the price is, they're going to pay it because it keeps them alive, helps keep them alive. So they're going to pay that price no matter what. So there's very little change in demand for penicillin. It's going to be something that's going to be needed all the time. Vice versa, if you have something like maybe a drastic increase on the price of pop, you can again have very elastic demand because it's probably going to be a big change in the large, have a large effect on the number sold. So here is our inelastic demand. Notice again that the quantity is down here, price is here. Okay, so you can see that it has a very small effect on the number sold. As the price increases, it has a very small effect on the number sold. So almost a straight up down curve or line here would be your inelastic demand. Okay, doesn't matter if it's $10 an ounce here for penicillin, if it's $50 an ounce for penicillin. You're going to need that, so you're still going to end up buying it. Okay, so that's your inelastic demand graph. Now, what are the characteristics of elasticity of demand? So what makes something elastic or inelastic? Well, the availability of substitutes. If you have a lot of substitutes, demand is usually more elastic. There's no substitute for penicillin. Diabetics need this to survive. Okay? So therefore, that's why it's inelastic. Whereas a pop, if the price increases dramatically, there's many substitutes out there: water, orange juice, other cheaper pop, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Lots of substitutes out there that can be used instead of that one particular pop. Percentage of budget. The bigger part of a person's budget that is spent on a product, the more elastic it tends to be. And third is time. The longer people have to adjust to price change, the more elastic it tends to be. I'll give you the example for gas. It's a great example for this one. Okay, honestly, gas right away, and this could happen, would be inelastic. So if we have a price change from $2.29 right now, and it goes to $8 a gallon, right now people would still buy the gas. It would be inelastic because we got to get to our jobs, we got to get to school, we got to, whatever we got to do. But due to number 3 here, the time, the longer we have to adjust to that high price, the more elastic it tends to be. Because now what we're going to do is, instead of driving ourselves to Iowa City at $8 a gallon, we're going to carpool somebody. Or I'm going to ride my bike into work here in the town. Or I'm going to walk to school, or whatever it might be. The longer we have time to adjust to that, then it becomes more elastic. Okay, so gas is a great example of that one there. And that gives us our change in demand and our elasticity of demand.